In the harsh reality of the prehistoric wild, noise was a liability. To be loud was to be found. Evolutionary biology teaches us that there are two types of survival strategies, the aposematic and the cryptic. The aposematic creatures are loud, colorful, and aggressive. They use noise to warn off predators. Think of the rattle of a snake or the roar of a lion. But the cryptic strategy is different. It relies on blending into the background, observing the environment, and striking only when the odds are 100% in your favor. The quiet person is the modern evolution of the cryptic strategist. While the rest of society is engaged in a constant aposematic display, shouting for attention on social media, dominating conversations to prove status, the observer has retained the ancestral skill of silence. Research in anthropology suggests that the early human scouts, those sent ahead of the tribe to track prey or detect enemies, were chosen for their ability to remain silent for days. This required a specific neurological makeup, the ability to suppress the urge to communicate in favor of the need to perceive. This is the first reason why quiet people are dangerous. They have a higher perceptual bandwidth. When you are talking, your brain is focused on output generation. This consumes massive amounts of cognitive load. You are thinking about your word choice, your tone, and how you are being perceived. In this state, your input sensors are narrowed. You miss the slight change in someone's facial muscle. You miss the inconsistency in their story. You miss the subtle shift in the room's energy. The observer, however, has their output channels closed. Their entire cognitive capacity is dedicated to data acquisition. In a 30-minute meeting, a loud person might acquire 10% of the available social data. A quiet person acquires 90%. They aren't just hearing words, they are mapping the social architecture of the room. They know who is truly in charge, who is lying, and who is afraid, simply because they were the only ones looking. In the animal kingdom, the silent predator is the one that disrupts the food chain. If you can hear the wolf howling, you know where he is. You can run, you can hide. But the panther that makes no sound, by the time you realize it's there, the game is already over. This is the primal fear that silence triggers in others, the fear of the unknown. When a person refuses to speak, they refuse to provide the identity data that others use to categorize and control them. You cannot box in a person you cannot hear. To understand why the observer is dangerous, we must look at the wiring under the hood. For decades, introversion was seen as a social deficit, but modern neuroscience, led by researchers like Dr. Marty Olson-Laney, has revealed a startling truth. The brains of quiet people are literally wired for deeper processing. There are two primary neural pathways for processing stimuli, the dopamine pathway and the acetylcholine pathway. Extroverts are driven by the dopamine pathway. This is a short, fast circuit. It seeks external rewards, social validation, excitement, and status. It is designed for quick action. While this is great for the hunt, it is terrible for the analysis. The dopamine-driven brain is prone to confirmation bias. It hears what it wants to hear, so it can get to the reward faster. Quiet people, however, operate on the acetylcholine pathway. This is a significantly longer neural circuit. It passes through the insular cortex, which handles empathy and self-reflection, the hippocampus, where long-term memories are stored, and the prefrontal cortex, the CEO of the brain, responsible for complex planning and error detection. This means that when a quiet person receives information, it travels a more rigorous path. They aren't just hearing you,
They are cross-referencing your current statement against a memory of something you said 3 years ago. They are simulating the long-term consequences of your proposal while you are still finishing your sentence. Furthermore, quiet brains have a higher density of gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. This leads to a phenomenon called hyperreflexivity. The observer is constantly monitoring the monitor. They are aware of their own biases and are actively correcting them in real time. This makes them nearly immune to typical manipulation tactics like gaslighting or emotional baiting. If you try to provoke a quiet person, you will often notice a delay. This isn't because they are slow, it's because they are filtering your provocation through their prefrontal cortex. They are asking, why is this person trying to make me angry? What is their goal? If I react, who wins? By the time they respond, they have bypassed the emotional trap and formulated a counter strategy. This is why they are dangerous in high-stakes environments. While everyone else is reacting with their lizard brain, the amygdala, the observer is operating with a supercomputer. You are playing checkers, they are playing algorithmic chess with 10,000 simulations running simultaneously.
In game theory, the most powerful position is not held by the person with the most resources, but by the person with the most information asymmetry. Information asymmetry occurs when one party knows significantly more than the other. This creates a power gap that is almost impossible to close. The loud person is a constant data leak. Every time they speak, they are giving away their utility function, what they value, what they fear, and what their reservation point, the lowest they are willing to go, is. The observer is a data sink. They take in everything and give back nothing. Think of a negotiation as a game of incomplete information. If I know your price, but you don't know mine, I have already won. By remaining quiet, the observer forces the other party to make the first move. In psychology, this is known as the anchoring effect. Usually, the first person to speak sets the anchor, but a skilled observer uses silence to force the other person to anchor themselves in a position of weakness. There is a concept in game theory called the Nash equilibrium. It is the state where no player can improve their position by changing their strategy alone. Quiet people use silence to disrupt the equilibrium. By not providing feedback, no nodding, no aha, no smiling, they create a social vacuum. The human ego is terrified of a vacuum. When an extrovert meets a silent observer, they experience cognitive dissonance. They think, I am talking, but I am not receiving a social reward. This must mean I am failing. I need to talk more. I need to be more honest. I need to explain myself. This is where the danger lies. Under the pressure of silence, people will volunteer confessional data. They will admit to things they never intended to share. They will lower their price. They will reveal their secrets, all because they couldn't handle the informational void the quiet person created. The observer doesn't have to lie to manipulate you. They simply let you manipulate yourself with your own noise. They understand that in any interaction, the person who cares the least holds the most power, and nothing signals I don't care about your drama more than absolute, calculated silence. History is not written by the loud. It is written by those who used the loud as distractions. Take the example of Louis XIV, the Sun King of France. Louis ruled for 72 years, the longest reign in European history. His secret? Silence as a weapon of statecraft. Louis understood that a king who speaks too much becomes common. He becomes knowable, and once a king is knowable, he can be killed. Louis developed a protocol that terrified his ministers. When they would approach him with complex problems, passionate pleas, or urgent crises, he would listen with a face of stone. He would not interrupt. He would not even blink. When they were finished, he would simply say, "Je verrai," I shall see. Then he would turn and walk away. This was a masterpiece of dark psychology. By not reacting, he forced his ministers to go back and rethink their positions. They would ask themselves, was he angry? Was he pleased? Did he already know what I told him? Because they couldn't read the king, they were forced to be hyper-vigilant. They worked harder, they lied less, and they feared him more. His silence created an aura of omniscience. They began to believe he knew everything simply because he said nothing. Contrast this with the quiet strategists of the 20th century. Consider Cardinal Richelieu or even the modern gray eminences of Silicon Valley. These are the people who stay in the background. They don't want the spotlight power. They want the infrastructure power. The loud leader, the lion, is the target. He is the one people aim at. But the quiet advisor, the fox, is the one who actually writes the laws and controls the money. Machiavelli noted that the most dangerous enemy is not the one who threatens you to your face. That enemy is easy to track. The dangerous enemy is the one who is quietly helpful while they slowly remove the pillars of your support. Quiet people are dangerous because they play for the long game. While the extrovert wants the dopamine hit of a victory today, the observer is willing to wait a decade for the strategic victory of tomorrow. They understand that power is a zero-sum game. Every word you waste is a weapon they can use against you. They don't want to win the argument, they want to win the world. The greatest power of a quiet person is that they become a human Rorschach test. In psychology, the Rorschach test uses ambiguous ink blots to reveal a patient's subconscious. Because the image has no inherent meaning, the patient is forced to project their own fears, desires, and secrets onto it. The observer does exactly this in social interactions. By remaining silent and maintaining a neutral expression, what we call the opaque persona, you force the other person to fill the silence with their own psychological projections. If the person talking is insecure, they will assume your silence is judgment. If they are guilty, they will assume your silence is suspicion. If they are arrogant, they will assume your silence is awe. This is a devastatingly effective tool of information extraction. Think about the last time you were in a conversation where the other person simply wouldn't stop talking. They were likely experiencing social anxiety overcompensation. When we don't receive verbal feedback, our brain enters a state of social panic. To ease this panic, we start self-disclosing. We reveal our true motives, our hidden agendas, and our personal weaknesses, all in a desperate attempt to get the quiet person to react. The observer is dangerous because they have mastered the art of the void. They know that the more they say, the more they reveal their own input-output map. By saying nothing, they remain a closed circuit. They are a black box in a world of open books. There is a dark psychological tactic known as the cold read.
Most people think a cold read requires speaking. It doesn't. It requires silence. By watching how a person reacts to your silence, you can map their entire personality. Do they fidget? Do they look away? Do they try to impress you? Each of these is a data point. The quiet person isn't just being quiet. They are conducting a living autopsy of your character while you are still alive and talking. They are looking for your psychological levers, the things that make you move, the things that make you afraid, and the things that make you predictable. By the time you realize they've been studying you, they already have the keys to your fortress.
To be quiet is not enough. One must be immovable. This brings us to the concept of the inner citadel, a term coined by the Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius. The Stoics believed that while we cannot control the world, we have absolute sovereignty over our own minds. Quiet people are dangerous because they are the masters of the gap. In behavioral psychology, there is a stimulus and there is a response. Most people live their lives in a 1-to-1 ratio. Something happens and they react. Someone insults them, they get angry. Someone praises them, they get excited. They are reactive engines. The observer, however, has expanded the gap between the stimulus and the response. When an external event occurs, no matter how chaotic or threatening, it does not hit their emotional center. It hits their internal filter. This is the Stoic tactical advantage. If you cannot move a person emotionally, you cannot control them. You cannot bait them into a trap. You cannot manipulate them with guilt. You cannot intimidate them with threats. This emotional invincibility is terrifying to the loud and the reactive. Consider the power of the no reaction. In a high-stakes negotiation or a heated argument, if you insult someone and they simply stare back at you with calm, analytical eyes, you feel an immediate loss of status. You have fired your best shot and it did nothing. You are now exposed and they are still a mystery. Quiet people use silence to maintain their metabolic efficiency. Reaction takes energy. Anger takes energy. Explaining yourself takes energy. By conserving this energy, the quiet person remains fresh and focused while their opponents exhaust themselves with emotional outbursts. They understand that the first person to lose their temper has already lost the battle. Their silence is not passive, it is an active state of high-level combat readiness. They are the eye of the storm. While everything around them is spinning in chaos, they are the only ones who can see clearly enough to strike the decisive blow. In the world of intelligence and undercover operations, there is a concept called the gray man. A gray man is someone who is designed to be forgotten. They don't wear flashy clothes. They don't have loud opinions. They don't seek attention. They are the background noise of the world. Quiet people are the ultimate gray men of social engineering. While the alpha is busy marking his territory and the beta is busy seeking approval, the gray man, the observer, is busy moving through the social hierarchy undetected. This is the power of strategic invisibility. If you are not perceived as a threat, people will lower their guard around you. They will discuss sensitive information in your presence. They will reveal their true alliances. They will treat you as if you are part of the furniture. This is exactly where the observer wants to be.
In corporate environments, the most dangerous person is rarely the CEO or the loud manager. It is the quiet assistant or the silent analyst who has been in the room for 5 years, saying nothing but seeing everything. They have the password to every door because they were the only ones paying attention while everyone else was fighting for the spotlight. The observer uses social camouflage. They mirror the energy of the room just enough to avoid being noticed, but never enough to be categorized. They are socially fluid. This allows them to practice the law of stealth. Most people fail because they announce their intentions. They want the credit. They want the glory. The quiet person doesn't care about the credit. They only care about the outcome. They are willing to let someone else take the public win as long as they hold the strategic win. They are the puppet masters. They plant a seed of an idea in a loud person's ear, let that person shout it to the world, and then quietly reap the benefits while the loud person takes all the risks. They are dangerous because you never see them coming, and by the time you do, they've already won.
We have reached the final law, the synthesis of all we have discussed. The quiet person is dangerous because they have built an internal empire that does not depend on the external world. Most people are externalized. Their happiness, their identity, and their sense of power are all outsourced to other people. They are like a house with no walls. Anyone can walk in and change the furniture. The observer, however, has a fortified interior. Because they spend so much time in silence, they have explored the deepest parts of their own psyche. They know their shadows. They know their strengths. They have faced their own demons in the quiet hours of the night. This creates a level of self-certainty that is impenetrable. When a quiet person speaks, it is not a draft, it is a finished product. They have already simulated every objection, every counter-argument, and every possible outcome in the laboratory of their mind. Their words have the weight of an executioner's axe, precise, heavy, and final. They understand the law of scarcity. Anything that is rare is valuable. Gold is valuable because it is hard to find. Silence is valuable because it is rare in a world of noise. When you speak constantly, your words are like paper currency, hyperinflated and worthless. When you speak rarely, your words are like bars of gold. People stop. They listen. They adjust their behavior. This is the hidden power. It is the power of presence. You don't need to shout to be powerful. You don't need to dominate to be a leader. You simply need to be the most integrated person in the room. You need to be the one who cannot be shaken, cannot be read, and cannot be broken. As we close this deep dive, remember this. The world is loud because it is afraid. People talk because they are trying to convince themselves they exist. But the observer doesn't need to convince anyone. They know they exist. They know they are powerful. And they know that in the end, the noise always fades, but the silence remains. If you have watched this until the end, you are one of us. You are a strategist of the quiet. You are an architect of the void. Subscribe to this channel to join our silent revolution. Comment "Observe" below to seal this knowledge. Go out into the world. Listen more than you speak. Watch more than you move. And remember, the loudest one in the room is the target. The quietest one is the marksman. Stay dangerous. Stay smart.